we all had this very magical time making a movie that we all believed in and a story that we knew the world needed.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. My name is Talal, and you are listening to the Popcorn and Soda Podcast, the show where we discuss all things movies, pop culture, and so much more. I want to thank each and every one of you for making me a small part of your day. On today's show, we are joined by a very special guest. She is one of the finest cinematographers working in the industry today, with credits to her name such as Home Before Dark and Alex and Me. Her work will soon be seen in the big musical epic In the Heights, releasing on June 11th in theaters and on HBO Max. On the show today, the very talented Alice Brooks. How are you, Alice?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And once again, thank you so much for coming to hang out on the show today. I'm so fascinated by your story. For the viewers listening today, where does this all begin for you? Where did your love of the creative arts start? Early influences, favorite movies growing up?
So I grew up in New York City. My father was a playwright and my mom had been an actress until I was born. And then I have a younger sister. And when we were born, or when I was about 5, I started being a child actor, and I did almost 40 national commercials. And
Oh, wow.
I was a kid. I loved all the camera people and all the lights, and I was obsessed. Um, and so it was great. Like I knew around 15, I knew I no longer wanted to be an actor, but I had all that experience growing up on set. And so when I was 15, I auditioned for a movie, and I actually had 7 auditions for the same over and over and over again, 7 callbacks. And I finally, after the last callback, my mom and I went for a walk on the beach in Santa Monica, and I looked down at the ground, and there was this beautiful little black and white feather, black feather with white dots that I still have. And I told my mom then I wanted to be a DP. And so that became my focus. I went to USC to film school after that. And I just shot everyone's movies, or as many movies as I should say. It was my total focus. And I spent a year after graduating also shooting, staying around to shoot some thesis films just to build up my reel. And Jon Chu, the director of In the Heights, was a semester behind me. And it was amazing. He was making a musical, When the Kids Are Away, and musicals have been my passion. I grew up watching Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers and The Sound of Music and The Wizard of Oz. And he asked me to shoot his musical, When the Kids Are Away, and we bonded over musicals. And we've had a really great, that was 19 years ago. So we've had a really great 19-year collaboration on and off through the years.
Yeah, it's so interesting how things come back in full circles in so many ways, especially with a movie like In the Heights and your love of musicals. So, in your own words, what is cinematography?
A cinematographer creates the look of a movie, designs the look of a movie with, obviously there are other designers, so the production designer and it's the director's vision, but a cinematographer designs the lighting and the camera movement and works with the director to take his or her vision and put it on the screen.
And I love asking that question as cinematographers because I hear so many similar threads between all the answers, but they're almost like snowflakes where no one answer is the same as the other. And it's very interesting how everyone has their own experiences that they kind of tie into that definition. Now, I'm really curious. Do you remember what your first on-set experience was?
As a DP, as a
Yeah.
cinematographer? Yes. So I shot or my first student film experience was I shot a film called Meta at USC, and it was a thesis film that I actually wrote, and I wrote it. Only 4 thesis films get picked every year, every semester, and I knew I have no desire to be a writer, but I really wanted to have some great material for my reel. So I wrote a short that I felt like would have amazing material for my reel, and it took place in New York City on the subway. And it's actually what Jon noticed, which ended up getting me When the Kids Are Away. But I really, so that was my first on-set experience. It was so much fun. I mean, it was all our classmates, so it was
Yeah.
just a great experience.
Oh, that's amazing. One thing I'm really curious about, and this is another common thread that I kind of ask every cinematographer I speak to, is when you're starting off in the creative arts, now whether it's behind the camera or in front of the camera, we all kind of have this expectation or some sort of linear path that we think our career may go on. Now, would you say your path was the traditional, you did one work, got to the next one, got to the next one, or was it somewhat of like a pinball machine where you did one work, then bam, off to the left, off to the right, and then the way you thought your career might go kind of back and forth went everywhere?
I think this business is a total roller coaster ride. Sometimes you've got amazing highs, and sometimes you have amazing lows, and you just need to remember they're never going to be your high's never going to always be that high, and the low's not always going to be that low, and um, and to be able to really quickly pivot when challenges are thrown your way. And so I think, I got out of film school, and I didn't really understand that there weren't a lot of female cinematographers. No one had mentioned it to me. I went all through film school without ever thinking about it. And I actually didn't think about it for a couple of years. And then it became pretty clear that being a woman was going to actually be a challenge. It wasn't going to be as easy for me as it could be for some men in the industry wanting to be DPs. But I've never wanted to do anything else. I love what I do. And so I just sort of had to put blinders on and keep going. And I didn't work my way up through different departments. I purely shot, short films first, then indies, low budget movies,
Mm-hmm.
$100 a day, and
Yeah.
then and worked my way up that way in terms of budget level. So, when I was 30, I was like, why am I not further along in my career? But right now I'm just like, oh, this is exactly the way my career was supposed to have panned out.
Yeah, that's an amazing story right there, because we're also in so many ways we kind of compare our journeys to our peers, and we kind of it's hard not to compare, and that's just the human nature of things, where we're like, why am I here and why is so and so there, or maybe I'm not as far as ahead as I should be. But I think it's just at the end of the day, we all just respect our own journey, and we all end up being exactly where we're supposed to be. I really took that away from your answer there.
Actually, one other thing, like I sometimes, I mean, it's really easy to go down the like jealousy train where,
Oh,
Wiki, I go on Wikipedia and go, how old was this person when they shot this movie? And then, but once I stopped comparing myself to others, and just focused on doing the best job I could do in a situation, I think I became much happier with my career.
yeah. And again, it just goes back to the human nature within all of us. The sooner we accept it, I feel that things just start flourishing. Just internal happiness, just knowing that, hey, I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I love that. I'm really curious, as someone who shot both TV and movies, what's the biggest difference? Or is there a difference in terms of how you approach how you're shooting the project?
There's definitely a different way to approach TV versus film. I think that approach is closing, as you get shows like The Crown or even Home Before
Hmm.
Dark, or all these amazing Apple shows and Netflix shows and HBO shows. I mean, that really each episode looks like a feature film. But um, telling a story in 60 minutes or 55 minutes versus telling a story in a story in 55 minutes that then is part of a full 10 episode order or 20 episode order versus telling a movie that's done in 2 hours, I think is a different challenge. It's a different mental challenge. It's both are, I love both. I think they're both really interesting storytelling formats.
For sure. And it's just the way TV's going now, it's almost like they've become its own form of like movies in so many ways with Netflix, Apple TV, Hulu. They're budgeting, like sending out this big amount of money into these projects. And it just shows that the medium's evolving so much, especially with streaming. What do you think is the future of streaming when it comes to television or even movies?
I think we're going to find out what's going to happen with streaming and movies. I think we're in this really sort of exciting Wild West time where we're finding out if movies can be successful in the theater and successful as a streamer at the same time, and it's pretty exciting because it's new and who knows what's going to happen. And I love the movie going experience. I missed going to movie theaters desperately. I'm just fully vaccinated. And so I'm just, now I'm like, okay, what am I going to go see? And obviously there's not many things open right now.
Mhm.
And so, which also makes In the Heights pretty exciting because it is definitely an amazing experience with a full audience. Luckily, we did lots of friends and family screenings before COVID hit, so I've gotten to see the movie with people, and it's just such a huge, amazing joy to hear other people laugh and cry and clap and cheer and root for our heroes.
For sure. And let's transition into In the Heights. And as you just mentioned, it's such a feel good story. And I really feel like this is a movie that the world really needs right now, with especially everything that's gone on over the last year and a half. So let's deep dive right in. This all begins with such an amazing team behind this movie, and especially someone like yourself, collaborating with the amazing Lin Manuel Miranda and Jon M. What was that experience like working with such amazing creatives?
Jon is the best. He is just a great team leader. He started our very first day. We all stood on a street corner and he said, this is right in front of our bodega. And he said, thank you guys so much. Our whole crew is there standing at our main intersection. He thanked everyone. And he said, and thank you to your families because they're the ones who let you leave for so long to go to work on this. And he promised us it was going to be a movie worth making. And he was absolutely right. And so he is wonderful. And Lin is the greatest too. I've been lucky to do 2 movies in a row with him. And he is such a generous collaborator. And I'm very lucky to have gotten to spend so much time with both Jon and Lin.
I want to get into that technical aspect of this movie with someone who's so talented as yourself. So, what is your approach to shooting a movie like this? It's not your conventional movie where this is a musical, it's got moving pieces, large musical numbers, amazing backdrops, and the setting of Washington Heights. How do you approach this film as a cinematographer?
So I arrived in New York City 10 weeks before we started shooting In the Heights. So I had 10 weeks of prep, which was great because there was so much dance rehearsal to watch. So it was fantastic. We'd spend our first half of the day in Washington Heights looking at locations. Jon and I would, and the production designer and location manager and line producer and AD. And we went up and down. I felt like we went in every single building in Washington Heights. It was amazing. And while I was there, I realized that it was my job wasn't to put some Hollywood version of the movie on screen, but this place that I was starting to fall in love with, the smells, the tastes, the people, the sounds, all of it was right there. And as we're walking and wandering around Washington Heights for 10 weeks, I totally fell in love with it. And I realized that love was what needed to be captured. What was already there needed to be captured. And then our second half of the day, we spent at the dance rehearsal studio. So we would meet Christopher Scott, the choreographer, and Chris and Jon and I have done a lot of projects together over the years. And so we have a great collaboration. So I've been in lots of dance rehearsal studios with Chris. I've worked with him. He's directed some things also I've done. So so the three of us would meet at the rehearsal space, and Chris would show us what he was working on. And then at that sort of towards the end of the rehearsal day, we all three of us would film it from different angles, and we do that throughout the week. And then on Sundays we'd meet at Jon's house and share our videos with each other, and then Jon would sit there and start to edit the videos together, and we'd start to see what angles the dance looked best at. And then obviously we're just wandering around with iPhones, then we started to about like, what would the crane shot be, what would the jib shot be, would the Steadicam move be? Do we need an overhead? Do we need something really low? And so we just start to explore, and it was a great exploration.
Now, I'm really curious about this question here. What are the challenges of shooting large musical numbers that this movie is just full of?
So our biggest challenge was also our biggest asset, which was shooting in a real community. We're shooting in Washington Heights. We shot 90%, I would like to say, of the movie there, all but 10 days, I believe. And most of the time you build a lot of that stuff on stage, but the production designer went in and dressed and built walls and things actually on our street corner versus building a whole intersection on stage. Although part of our intersection was built on stage, but we mostly filmed that only the interiors on stage. So shooting in a community in the middle of summer, we had thunderstorms, we had, ambulances that had to go by, fire trucks that had to go by. There was a 3-alarm fire one night down the street, and we had to stop filming because obviously, we needed to stay out of the way of the fire department. But the thing was, the community was so happy that we were there, and they knew this movie. They knew the musical, and there was lots of community outreach, and a lot of people worked on the movie or were in the movie as extras, and so it was pretty special to have to be there. But we're also filming huge musical numbers with 300 people in the streets, or 600 people doing a swimming pool number. So that obviously creates a lot of challenges when you're in a real life situation. And I think our biggest challenge was weather over the summer. But I think that summer there was more thunderstorms than there had been in a summer in New York City or something. It was crazy. We'd have to just pause or for an hour at a time. But we did it. We made it, and the movie is all the better for it.
Mm-hmm. What was the most amount of takes you had to do for a musical number, just based on either the weather or the blocking? Or do you remember like a day or a specific scene where it was just like you had to keep doing it over and over again?
We had a oneer planned for one of the musical numbers, and that one, we knew we had it on take 9, which I believe is what take they used in the movie, but we shot 14 takes, and we shot until the light was gone. We're like, well, we knew 9 was amazing, and we kept going, could it be any better? Could it be any better? And I think I can't remember. I think take 12 was also excellent. And then 14, literally the sun dipped too low and it didn't look great. So, but yeah, I mean, it was a lot of takes, but we're pretty efficient. And the actors were so amazing, and the dancers were so on point all the time that we it was never for them. They really are masters.
That's just my next question right here. How much easier does your job become when you have such an amazing cast, amazing dancers, Anthony Ramos, Corey Hawkins, Lynn, Ariana, Leslie? How much easier does your job as DP become when you have such professionals and people who genuinely want to portray this contemporary setting and the people within the setting?
What was so special about our movie was the actors were in dance rehearsal from day one. I think Anthony and Vanessa were, I mean, Anthony and Melissa were there 2 weeks before I got there. So they started rehearsing first. So they had 12 weeks. And then Leslie and Corey and Gregory all started at 10 weeks out. And so it was, by the time we all, I mean, dancers are an incredible group of people. They have an amazing work ethic. And then combined with these 5 amazing actors. I mean, and then we have obviously lots of other amazing actors.
Right.
Our salon ladies and Olga. I mean, but I think those 5 started the earliest. But by the
Gotcha.
time we all were making the movie, everyone was on the same page. Everyone knew the story Jon and Lin and Kiara wanted to tell, and everyone understand what Jon's vision, how we were doing it. Was and we all were on the same page. I don't think I've ever been on a movie set before where every single person was making the same movie, and it's a huge team effort. Making a movie is a huge team effort, and when it works, it is magnificent, and it was a magnificent experience.
For sure. Now, I'm curious about this one as well here. Now, working on a project that has so many moving set pieces, such a large cast, dancers, have you had a chance to maybe sit back and really think about, hey, I worked on a project that may never be shot the same way that we shot it ever again, just due to how the world is? Who knows, maybe in a few years things may change, but for the foreseeable future, having those large ensembles on set and just the distancing and whatnot, does that ever cross your mind that you may be one of the last people to shoot a film like that?
I, in my heart, believe that is not going to be the case. I know we're going to make it through this. The film industry, our job is to figure out, get through challenges, and already has done an incredible job. So I really believe that we will be able to dance in the middle of the streets again. But the line producer and I were actually talking a few weeks ago, and I said, had I realized that was the last summer, you know, two years ago, we haven't been able to dance in the streets since then. We haven't been able to do that and have that kind of celebration. That to me is what's bittersweet. Is I'm hoping we're coming out of this soon, and that this movie can be a gift to people and can remind people of what a joy life is, and what a joy being in your community and being with people you love and respect is. I hope the joy in the movie sort of really hits home for people. But I can't believe that we'll never be able to do something that big again on the streets. I mean, doing huge musical numbers. I know the film industry will figure it out.
Yeah, that'd be great because there's so many great stories that are just dying to be told. And I really think that a movie like In the Heights, although it may be an adaptation of Broadway musical, it's going to be exposed to so many more people now, especially with streaming on HBO Max. And for the people that can't see it on the big screens, I hope they're able to see it, because a movie like this needs to be appreciated on the largest format, best audio, the biggest. It's just, I'm really so excited for this movie. Now, personally, for yourself, what's the one biggest takeaway your entire experience with shooting In the Heights?
I think the magic of In the Heights. I think the incredibly challenging hot summer that we all had, the sweaty hot summer that we all endured together. I mean, when you look at the credits list with the amount of dancers and the amount of crew that poured themselves into this movie, when we wrapped, there was a huge, no one left. I mean, the sound stage we wrapped on the stage, and the sound stage turned into a party with the lights. Our dimmer board operator changed the lighting into all different colors, and someone ordered sushi, and we all just sort of like, no one wanted to leave. And it was 1 a.m. in New York and in Brooklyn, and no one wanted to leave because we all had this very magical time making a movie that we all believed in, and a story that we knew the world needed. And we didn't know what was about to happen to the world. And now I think it's even more important than then.
As we wrap up with the great Alice Brooks, it is now time for a segment I like to call the final act. Alice, we're going to ask you a series of fun, rapid fire questions about your likes, your dislikes. We're going to give you 60 seconds to try to get through as many as you can. If you go over the time limit, it's all good. I just want the first thing that pops into your mind. You up for the challenge?
Sure.
Movies or TV shows?
Movies.
Theater or watch at home?
Theater.
Favorite movie?
The Natural.
One sequel better than the original?
Empire Strikes Back.
All right. Should Hollywood reboot Back to the Future?
Yes.
Summer or fall?
Summer.
All right. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes.
All right. Film or digital?
Both.
All right. Favorite camera to shoot on?
Panavision DXL2.
All right. And lastly, describe In the Heights in one word.
Magic.
Bam. Beautiful. Alice, you got through all those questions. No stutter, no pause. I loved it. First person to say, let's reboot Back to the Future, by the way. So that's really interesting. You brought that up. Alice, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. And thank you for your contributions to the creative arts. I, for one, am looking so forward to In the Heights. I look forward to whatever the future holds for you. And I hope in the next year or so, we can do this again and talk about your upcoming projects as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you.